Hello, this is Brooklyn Hawkins for my second vlog of the Global Learning Project. I had just finished my first encounter / meeting with my foreign exchange student. Her full name is Zui Lee, and she's my friend's roommate, and things went really well. We've hung out several times before then, just like because she's new to America, so my friend invited her along with us for a lot of things, and I really got to know her really well, and so this was really easy to do, and it went really smoothly. She was a little self-conscious just because she thinks her English isn't as best as it can be, so she's constantly working on it, which I think is a really great thing because she's really dedicated, and it's super cute because we're constantly telling her like she's doing really well with her confidence in her English, and she blushes and she gets really happy, so I think that's a great thing. She shared some pictures with me from high school, but she doesn't have very many because back in China, the school she went to didn't allow phones. So in her high school, so she didn't take very many pictures. But when she was in college, she went back to the high school and took pictures. And it's a very large building with a really big campus area, like a lot of place to like be outside, which I thought was interesting. It almost kind of looked like a college campus, but it's just like this one big huge building with like multiple stories. It almost looked like like almost an apartment complex. It looked really cool. And then I shared some of my pictures from high school, and she was really amazed at how small the high school was, and I asked her how many kids are normally in her classroom, and she said 70, which was like totally shocking for me because largest classroom I've been in was 30, so she was totally amazed that like we had that small of classrooms, and vice versa for me for how large. So she explained to me that in most Asian cultures and countries, their school dynamic is a little different, so they're all in one classroom most of the time, and the teacher rotates for every lesson, so she's not moving from classroom to classroom like here in America the teacher is. So I thought that was interesting. And she was there at school from 6 a.m. till 3 o'clock for her, because her high school was 3 years, and her first year especially was a lot longer because after school she went and tutored because her parents and her school weren't very confident in her science skills, so she was tutored for about 2 hours after school every day, so she didn't get home till around 5 or 6, and so she didn't really like that. She really likes to relax at home considering how long she spends at school. Her school week starts on Monday and goes till Saturday, so she only has Sunday off, so she really values her downtime. So that's why she didn't do any clubs or sports or anything, because she wanted as much free time as she could. All the classes she took, I have written down. She took English, math, Chinese, chemistry, history, physics, politics, biology, and geography. And every year, those would be clumped together. So every day she'd have English, math, and Chinese, but through the rest of the days, her other classes consisted of like she'd have chemistry, history, and physics one day, or so on and so forth. So like in America, where it's like 1 through 8 or 1 through 7 classes, you only have about 4 or 3 classes you rotate with, or 5 sometimes if like you wanted more class workload, which you had an option for in China, which is what Lee said. So I thought that was really interesting. And then her next 2 years, she didn't have a tutor, but she did help tutor, so she was sometimes during the week or the year, she would come home an hour late, and she would always either take the train or there's always be a train, or she's walking distance from her house because she lived in a city, and it was a very large city, and so she really enjoyed her walks home because they were really relaxing, or her train ride home because she got to listen to her music or play on her phone, which she doesn't get to have. Sometimes she would even leave her phone at home because there's no use of bringing it to school. So she was really happy when she got to college her first year, and because she's a sophomore. Her first year was in China, and she was really happy to see everything because she had so much freedom, and she at first was really nervous about it, but once she kind of understood like the liberty and like the freedom she could create with her own time, it was much less daunting because she was such a strict schedule in high school that she didn't really have much of her own choices. So I thought that was really interesting that she kind of enjoys freedom just as much as everyone does. And I also experienced a similar thing where I wasn't sure on my freedom when I went to college my first year because there was so much I could do, and it was my own planning instead of high school where it's this daily regiment I could choose. So every day was almost different for me if I wanted it to. So I thought that was really cool that we shared something like that even though we're across the world. So for the top 3 things she was nervous about were tests, not going to college because getting into college in China is very, very difficult, and depending on what high school you went to also determined that. So because high schools wanted to have a really high success rate to college, they were also very strict and very picky on who they allowed in the high school. So she was constantly always having to work hard to make sure that she could get into the right college she wanted to. And then her other fear was English perception. She's very still self-conscious about how she speaks English, which I think she speaks it quite well, but she still thinks she could be better. So that's one thing she's constantly needing reassurance with. There's nothing that I think that everyone should get reassurance on is like how your perception. 3 things that she really enjoys doing is writing. So her 3 happy things involve writing. A lot of times she would write in her journal when she get home, which she really enjoyed. And then she came in second for a writing contest for her school because their school tries to encourage academic success, so they try to push you into doing academic contests. So she had to do it even though she didn't want to, but she ended up getting second, so it really encouraged her writing. And then she also won a prize for a school article she did, so she was really excited, and she loves to write. So I think that's one reason that she's so self-conscious about her English, because she wants to be able to perceive as well as she writes. And I've read her writing in English, and it's very beautiful, and I really enjoyed it. So for big tests, you had in China for her first 2 years. So she had a test every month, sometimes every 2 weeks, and besides just learning new material, the teacher would be constantly reviewing and retesting to get you prepared for the big tests that are called MOS. And when you get your test results, they're on this big board in front of the school with your name and your number and then what you got on the test. So it's very public, and often she said that she was worried that she'd score the lowest, so she was constantly working to be better, which was something I never heard of before, which I was really surprised by. But they would take notes and review, and I asked her if she did any homework, and she said, no, I never did homework. I studied either at school, they give you plenty of time to study along with learning and reviewing new material, but she really enjoyed her downtime at home, so she never really focused on studying outside of school. So my own reactions to the conversation were